Up. It's getting warmed up. Okay, we are live. We are live. Come on, guys. Jazz hands. This is how you do the jazz hands. Right there. Right there. Okay. There you go. We've got a Fairtax jazz hands coming from Bob and Ron. Okay, we're a little bit late on the show, but we are live. This is episode 173 of the Who Moved My Freedom podcast, live from the Big Daddy Gun Studios in Gainesville. Lola, come on. You're making noise. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so
that's all right. We can't hear it.
Yeah, what's up, guys? How's everything going?
It's going great. Going great. We should probably properly introduce ourselves, huh, Bob?
Yeah,
you know, we're the way we normally do.
Okay, I'm Bob Paxton,
and I'm Ron Molero.
We are the Fairtax Guys. That's how we do our podcast.
Oh, okay, cool. I'll take it. It's good. All right. So what I usually do here, we're gonna have the Fairtax Guys here with us on the show tonight. It's gonna be me and them. You guys represent the Florida Fairtax. What's the organization
exactly?
Florida
Fairtax Educational Association.
Yep.
Okay, very cool. And so they're going to talk to us about that. We'll talk about a lot of other things going on in the news. First of all, let me ask, are you guys gun guys?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, good. That's good.
We're both concealed carry permit holders.
Awesome. Awesome. Yep. Just wanted to make sure for my audience out there. So usually what I do here on the show, guys, is I talk to the audience first, give the shout outs to everyone hanging out with us in the chat. So I want to encourage everyone to click the thumbs ups. Okay. Share this video. This is our last video for about a week or so, because I'm going off to Vegas for the broadcasting show. So I'm not really going to be able to do the show while I'm out there because of time zones, etc. So let me just go quickly through the chat here and shout out everyone. I see Joe Carpenter, Carl Compton, Chris Illog, Cody Phillips, Caviar Hound, DCG 44S, Lost in Outdoors. Let's see who else. Enrique Q, Laggy Lag. I know, guys, don't laugh at these names. Boss Hog, Michael Bender, Ghetto Hood Gamer. Let's see who else we have in here. Chris Bullis, STL Storm Spotter, Richard Hughes, Tactical Ranger 84, and let me see, Devon Brown, Ron and Ron, Bricks, as well as SoCal Gunner, Gorillas and Guns, Imposter, Maggie W. Shout out to everyone there. Let me see who else. We got a bunch of other people here in the chat. I'm trying to go through real quick. Nick of Earth, Robert McRae, Shyster Magoo. Shyster Magoo is here today. It's very nice. Magnum Boys also here.
Oh, you get some real goodies there, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Ata Kutam 1224 as well in the chat. Screaming Skull Salute. A lot of people watch this just to see me butcher people's names, I think. For sure. So Vanessa Kitty is also in the chat. So shout out to Vanessa, William Hoffman, as well as Bill Butcher. And let's see, Cisco 316. Okay, and let me see who else we got in here. I see B King, James Lawson, Andrew Mitchie, Robert Rodriguez, Hollywood AR19, John Brown, Mortensen Firearm. Shout out to everyone. I know I probably missed some people. If I did miss you, just let me know. And then also, if you are sending me a message, if you're texting me, I don't even have my phone right here. It's over there in the computer because I'm trying to download. I have way too much stuff on my phone, so I'm trying to download stuff from my phone, clear it up for the trip that I'm about to do. So anyway, we're gonna get about our regular work tonight's. This is episode 173, by the way, and we're calling it "Is the Zombie Raccoon Apocalypse Upon Us?" What do you guys think? What do you guys think about that?
If Bob? It is, the IRS is going to try to tax it. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that's right.
They're going to tax the raccoons.
They'll try if they think they can get any money out of them.
Yeah, good luck with that. Good luck. Did you guys hear about this, about the zombie raccoons?
I did not.
No.
Yeah. There is such a thing. I'm not making it up. And I could not resist it for my last show to talk about the zombie raccoons. But it is real. It's not fake news.
Ah.
It's not hashtag fake news. It really is real. So we're going to talk about the zombie raccoons. I'll read the article to you guys here in a second. We've got guns. I'll show you guys real quick. Look at that thing. Do you guys recognize this? This is from a Florida company, by the way.
It is.
Yeah, 22 Magnum, PMR 30 from Caltech, and this is in navy blue.
Yeah, I can see.
22 Magnum, and this holds about 30 rounds. 22 Magnum.
Holy cow!
Yeah, so pretty pretty cool. This one actually belongs to Big Daddy, and I borrowed it from him, as well as a whole bunch of guns around here. So
that's where I bought mine. Big
absolutely.
Daddy.
Oh,
yep.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate the patronage of the store. Everyone needs to buy their guns from there.
Yeah. Tony and Sherry have been good for the Fairtax. They're good Fairtax supporters.
Awesome. Great. So yes, so we're going to talk about the Fairtax as well. We'll talk about other things going on in the news. Since this is the last day that we're going to be here, you guys could tell us what you want to talk about here in the news. Ask questions of these guys. And I see Justin E says Fairtax now.
Yeah.
Right on, brother.
We agree.
Yeah.
We agree. Absolutely.
Yeah, we're going to get real in depth into that. These guys are here for 2 hours. We'll talk about anything else that you all want to talk about. There's quite a few things that we didn't talk about yesterday. I know people want to talk about what's going on in Deerfield, Illinois. So there's some stuff there. We're gonna pretty much go through all of that and have those conversations. So first, what I'm going to do though is I'm going to let these guys introduce themselves and introduce the Fairtax to us. Then we'll go off to the zombie raccoon thing, and then we'll come back. How about that?
Sounds good.
Great.
Yeah. So who are you guys?
Well, my name is Ron Bolero. I'm a former high school science teacher and school administrator, and left New York State, the land of taxes, 22 years ago, moved to Florida here. My wife and I bought a commercial truck, an Expediter, and she and I drove team for 5 years. And then we did some truck leasing, which was more trouble than it was worth anyways. And while I was on the road, I kept listening to Neil Bortz talk about the Fairtax. And then in 2005, he and John Linder published a book. And I said, well, I got to get this book. So I got the book and read it. And I said, this makes way too much sense. And I gave it to my wife, Elaine, who was actually over there conducting a Fairtax meeting right now.
Yeah, we're all in the same building. We're all in the same building.
Yeah, we multitask around here.
Absolutely.
And she read it, and we got into it. So we got involved and helped out the people that were, working at the time on the Fairtax.
Yep. Well, I'm Bob Paxton. I was a radio DJ in an earlier life. Retired computer programmer now, and when I retired, I had more time on my hands, and I got a hold of this guy and says, "What can I do to help you pass the Fairtax?" And that's a question that he still hasn't finished answering because there's something new every day.
Yes, that was a number of years ago, and it keeps. My wife and I started out helping another couple who were in Marion County. We live about 30 miles south of Gainesville, in Ocala, and helping out this other couple, and we thought, okay, we'll help them out. Maybe we'll do a presentation once in a while, then we'll go play golf, be retired people and so forth. And so we did that for a little while. Then they called and said, we need to talk to you. That's never a good sign. Right?
No.
They wanted us to become Marion County coordinators. And then from there, we became district directors. And last June, I was elected president of the Florida Fairtax Educational Association. But that's good. But I told the board, I said, I know why you elected me president, because what you really wanted was my wife as secretary. So, and they got that too. So
package deal.
Yeah.
Awesome. So exactly what is this Fairtax you speak of?
The Fairtax is a proposal. It's HR 25. It's in Congress. It's been in Congress every year since 1999. It's never gotten out of committee. It is a plan to completely replace the federal income tax system. I mean, you get rid of the income tax, you get rid of everything that supports the income tax, which means the withholding goes away. With the Fairtax, there's nothing withheld out of your paycheck, no federal withholding, so you bring home your full gross amount. It's a consumption tax. It's a retail consumption tax that's paid anonymously at the cash register on the retail purchase of new goods and services. So it's kind of applying to the federal level what we do here in Florida. There's no state income tax here in Florida. Right. So we fund the state government largely with sales taxes, and it works wonderfully. Florida's economy is booming compared to states like Illinois and California and New York, who have these humongously oppressive income taxes.
Mm-hmm. And the sales tax.
And the sales tax as well. So in a nutshell, it's just a plan to replace the federal income tax and all the woes that come with it, including all the evasion that comes with it. with a simple retail consumption tax that is progressive in nature. A lot of people say that, oh, wait a minute, consumption taxes, sales taxes are regressive. The fair tax includes a provision called the prebate, which is actually just a tax refund. Under the fair tax, since it taxes spending, you have what's called the family consumption allowance. You are allowed to spend up to the poverty level for your household size. It varies by household size, without being taxed. But of course, it's way too much trouble to try to figure out how much everybody has spent. So you just collect the tax, from purchase $1 and rebate back to you the amount of fair tax you have paid on that level of spending up to the poverty level, which for a family of 4, if it were in effect now, would be a little over $600 a month.
Yep,
that you get back. So if you're spending right at the poverty level, your out-of-pocket tax rate is nothing, because everything you pay at the cash register is given back to you in this prebate. And you really don't start taking money out of your own pocket to pay the fair tax until your spending exceeds the poverty level, i.e. you've taken care of your family's basic necessities. It is a wonderful system.
Yeah. Okay, very cool. Okay, so we will get more into that. So while we're talking about other things here, if people wanted to go look you up, what .com do they go to find out about you guys, or .org, I'm assuming?
Well, Fairtax.org is the website for the National Grassroots Organization. And we've got FLFairtax.org is the Florida group as well. So,
and I think most of the states have their own state version, like AFFT is the mothership. And each of the states, are kind of like attached to the mothership there.
But I would direct people to Fairtax.org. There are FAQs there. Yeah. There are white papers there. There's a lot of explanatory information about what the fair tax is and how it works. If you want to know, the kind of the nuts and bolts of how it works, Fairtax.org is the place to start.
Okay, very cool. And one quick question there's a question from LV Louis Cipher, and he wants to know, is this similar to the VAT, the value added tax in the European Union?
It is a consumption tax, but a value added tax, you can think of it as a production tax. It is every time throughout the whole process of creating a product or a service, like you make a car. First, you get the iron ore out of the ground and you make it into steel. Well, you added value by changing refining the iron ore and making iron out of it. So there's a tax assessed. And then you make it into steel, another tax assessed. Then you make it into fenders, another tax assessed. So a value added tax is kind of a production tax, because it's a small tax that's added at each step of production. So it is based on consumption instead of income. That part is good. The problem is it can be kind of stealthy, and the government can mess around with it too much. It's too hidden, all right? And I'll tell you a short story here. I was doing, when we first got into the fair tax, and I really didn't know that much about it. We were down in the Villages doing an event with our friends Nick and Barb, and I was handing out some information. A lady came and said, with her British accent, said, "I'm from the UK. It doesn't affect me." She said, "But don't let them do what they did to us. They said if we had to put in a consumption tax, they would lower the income tax. They didn't do that. Now we have a consumption tax and an income tax."
Right. They just layer. Usually what happens is that the politicians like to layer taxes on top of taxes. Okay, very cool. We're going to really deep dive into this and get deep into it. So if you guys have questions and things like that, just, get ready to give us those. I do want to get into what we're going to talk about here at the top of everything. I want to remind everyone before we do that, if you're to register on hankstrange.tv, that's how you keep in touch with me. We're going to send out an email tomorrow letting you guys know some of the things that are going on. So if you go to hankstrange.tv, there's a little box there. You can put your email address in it. That's how you keep in touch with us. And we're doing that because of everything going on with YouTube and Facebook and all these places. If they pull the plug on us, we have no access to you. So we decided to come up with an email list. Also, when we give away things here on the show and do other things, we're going to use that. So check out hankstrange.tv. And let me read the headline here that I wanted to talk about. Also, guys, make sure that you click the thumbs ups, because we definitely need thumbs ups to keep this going. I don't even think we hit 100 thumbs ups yet, and we have like 170 something people in here. So we can definitely get to 100, because it's just one more. But I think we could do even better than that if you guys help us out. We appreciate it. We appreciate you hitting those thumbs ups for sure. And let me read this article. So he is so here's the article. This is in the Washington Post. It says he thought something was wrong with the raccoon, and then it stood on its hind legs. Robert Cogshaw was playing with his beagles outside his Youngstown, Ohio house around noon Friday when he saw the raccoon. The 72-year-old pushed his dogs inside as the raccoon fearlessly made its way right up to the glass door, and for a few moments, the animals sat face to face, fascinated with one another. Cogshaw thought something was wrong with the raccoon since it was out in broad daylight. What came next confirmed that as he left his garage to try to shoo the animal away, the raccoon stood up on its hind feet and flashed its sharp white teeth and pink gums. Saliva dripped from its mouth.
Oh, yeah. That's not good.
Then, it's not even over. Suddenly, it collapsed into a comatose-like state, Cogshaw said. It soon awoke from its lethargy, walked around for a bit, then got back up on its hind feet again. Yeah, wow. He said it was kind of startling. It kept coming back to the house. It was at my door 2 or 3 times for hours. He called a wildlife photographer, a naturalist, and they watched the raccoon repeat the bizarre pattern over and over again. So they took about 250 photos of the raccoon, and you could find it in this article. Let me see here. I'm going to try to share this article with you guys for anyone who wants to see it, if you haven't already seen it in the news. So I don't know if you guys could see this, but I am going to put it in the chat. You should see a little thing come up there that you should be able to click on. I don't know how. And then I'll put it here in the chat for the folks who are hanging out with us. So what do you guys think about that?
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is rabies. I think the thing has rabies.
Yeah, but is that how raccoons act when they're under? Yeah. That's the wrong link. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I don't think so. Haven't seen that many raccoons that aren't the roadkill by the side of the highway.
That's right. It's about the only time we see them is they're kind of flat on the road. But I've never seen that happen. But that's the first thing that came in mind is that thing is rabid and it's very dangerous.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't call it like animal control.
Was there more than one or just that one?
I think it was just this one. There's several different reports on this. It's interesting to me. I mean, if something like this is going on, I mean, did you guys ever see Guardians of the Galaxy?
I did not.
Yeah. Well, there's a raccoon in there, but I mean, he's not real.
That's my grandson's favorite movie.
Yeah. I think his name is Rocket the Raccoon, and this guy kind of looks like him. So unless there really are aliens, and this is not really a raccoon, it's one of those guys.
That was it. The raccoon saw one too many episodes of Guardians of the Galaxy. He's getting he's getting illusions of grandeur because in the movie the raccoon was the smartest one of the bunch.
Yeah, he was pretty vicious too. So here's another article in Ohio. This one says zombie raccoons are terrifying residents in Ohio. Youngstown police are investigating reports of zombie-like raccoons in Northeast Ohio. Reports Youngstown police have received more than a dozen calls in the past 3 weeks about raccoons acting strangely in the daytime.
That's very unusual.
So that's obviously not the...
No, they're nocturnal animals.
Yeah.
They don't come out during the day, and they certainly don't come up to your glass door,
Yeah. So this could be the beginning of, of a zombie apocalypse. I don't really think so.
One threatens me, I'm going to shoot him.
That sounds like they already got Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Maybe this will be number 3 or something.
Number 3, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird, but I think things like this happen from time to time, right? And who knows? Maybe these raccoons, maybe they came across something that we threw away, some kind of food or something else that we consumed, maybe some of our drugs.
But where was the first report?
Well, this is all in Ohio. It looks like it's all in Ohio. Yeah. So there's some kind of new kind of raccoon meth.
Yeah, there's a new strain of some kind of toxic weed.
Yeah. I hope it stays in Ohio. Whatever's going on.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And down here.
Yeah, exactly. And Tony McKnight, who's actually by the way. That's the boss. That's Big Daddy. He
Yep.
happens. He's on the chat here, and he says, "Who cares? Raccoons are shoot on sight."
Amen, brother.
Hey,
Yeah.
if they're standing up on their back feet, absolutely.
Yeah, put
Now
a little green dot right on their nose and boom.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that maybe I don't know about Ohio. I don't know what the rules are. The Tyven show says prime example to own a gun, just shoot the raccoon. And then Highway Run 77 says, Hank, that's rabies. We can move on to the Illinois news now. What's going on there? So, yeah, maybe it's a new strain of rabies or something. But listen, how can I not talk about a zombie thing? Okay, Lola's giving me another article that says distemper. Distemper in raccoons. Next to humans, the second leading cause of death of raccoons is distemper. What? I think you have distemper, Lola.
I don't have
You're standing up right now.
Okay.
Raccoons are susceptible to infection by both canine and feline distemper. Okay, although they both can cause acute illness and death, they are caused by two completely different viruses. Canine distemper is a highly contagious disease of carnivores caused by a virus that affects animals in the family, blah, 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 blah. So it's distemper. Is that what you're saying? So just shoot all raccoons. That's probably where I'm calling it the zombie raccoon apocalypse.
Yeah.
Nothing. That's going to bring all the people in. No, there's not really going to bring all the people in to watch this, but it allows me to do a thumbnail for this video later on that has like a zombie raccoon on it. Which I think is cool. So, all right, okay, let's move on quickly before people, because I know that people want to talk about what's going on in Illinois. Let me see. Armed Al says they are bath salts. Baths, yeah, this is because of bath salts. You guys remember bath salts?
No, that one I don't know.
Yeah, that's what some drugs that people were taking, and that was making them pretty much into zombies. So,
yeah, maybe they got into that. That was. Like I said, new species of foreign weed or something in Ohio.
Yeah. So now the other article that I wanted to go to before we got into talking about the Fairtax stuff, which I really want to get into, is did you guys hear about Deerfield Beach? No, not Deerfield Beach. I don't know why I'm saying that. In Florida, we have Deerfield Beach.
Right.
Yeah, this is in Chicago.
Deerfield, Illinois.
Yeah, Deerfield, Illinois. So it says Deerfield bans assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Owners of assault weapons living in who owns this? None of us own assault weapons.
No,
but whatever.
Any weapon can be. You can make an assault with a baseball bat.
I got your assault weapon right here. This is
there you go.
That works.
Also belongs to Big Daddy, and see, look, it's got salt in it right there.
No, it's not one of those bug killers that gets
exactly. That's what I it just aggravates me in the article, first of all, when they say that, because they just don't whoever wrote this doesn't understand that, obviously. But it says owners of assault weapons living in North suburban Deerfield have until June 13th to remove the firearms from within village limits or face daily fines. After a ban was approved Monday night, the Village Board of Trustees unanimously approved a ban on certain types of assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, amending a 2013 ordinance that regulated the storage of those items. See, they start with a stupid law about the storage. We let that nonsense stand. Then they just keep bumping it up.
Yeah.
And
you know what the result of that is? More people moving to Florida.
Yeah, well, I mean, we also put some stupid laws in effect in Florida. Hopefully, we knock those down.
Yeah,
I'm sure you guys are aware of that. Unfortunately, our Republicans here in Florida let us down and pushed through a terrible bill, which the governor, also a Republican, that's running for higher office now, signed, which sucks.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let me see here. So this new ordinance prohibits the possession, sale, and manufacturing of certain types of assault weapons and large capacity magazines within the village. According to the ordinance, one change from the laws as it was originally discussed exempts retired police officers from the ban, according to a village manager, Kent Street. Wow. Violations carry a fine between $250 and $1,000 per day. which I'm pretty sure what they're going to plan on do here is like take your house from you.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how big this village is.
Build up fines. Yeah. Put a lien on your house. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But do they have a definition of assault weapons?
I'm pretty sure they do. Street said the law is modified the new law is modified after one approved by Highland Park in 2013. That ban survived a legal challenge by one of the city's residents and the Illinois State Rifle Association. The 7th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals held that legislation constitutional, and the U.S. Supreme Court let the decision stand when it declined to take up the appeal, which is one of the problems we have right now with the Supreme Court, right? They don't want to take up any of these laws. So I'm trying to look through here and see where they're talking about it. We could probably, okay, so here we go. In the ordinance, the definition of an assault weapon includes, amongst others, semi-automatic rifles that have a fixed magazine with a capacity to accept more than 10 rounds of ammunition, shotguns with a revolving cylinder, and semi-automatic pistols and rifles that can accept large capacity magazines and possess one of a list of other features. Amongst the dozens of specific models cited are the AR-15, AK-47, and Uzi, according to the ordinance. But it sounds like to me, it sounds like it could just be anything.
Yeah, yeah. They will stretch it to make that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, when you live in Illinois, that's what you get. All right.
Yeah.
Look at Chicago. They have very strict gun laws. It's like the murder capital of the country. You know, that's not working very well for them up there.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You know, so I know people want me to talk about this. I think ultimately, if you live there and you're going through this is the reason why you have to vote. And then obviously, even if you voted, you need to take steps to strike this down. You need to do something about this. Vote people out of office. Get mad. Get off the sofa. Get out there and fight these things. It's pretty much the same thing that I would say to people here in Florida that, you know, we passed pretty widespread gun control or sweeping, excuse me, gun control here in Florida, and no one seems to really be up in arms about it. But it pretty much is going to make us all felons.
Yeah, and that whole thing, banning gun ownership by somebody under 21, that's crazy. What that does is makes almost every college campus in Florida a gun-free zone.
Mm-hmm.
Target-rich environment.
Yeah, it's terrible. And I have a grandson in college here in Florida, and that's very much a great concern of mine. You know.
Yeah.
Now, this particular grandson happens to be extremely knowledgeable about guns. His dad, my son-in-law, is a great outdoorsman, very knowledgeable. My grandson got his first hunting rifle when he was 10 years old. So now he's not allowed to own that or anything else. And my grandson could tell you all kinds of things about the history, the operation, and so forth. He's more knowledgeable about the operation and safety of guns than most adults in the country. Now he's not allowed to own one.
Well, I think he is allowed to own them. He just can't purchase them anymore on his own, which is stupid. It's like, you know, it doesn't really make any sense, right? So I'm guessing that means that people can they can purchase something for him and then give it to him. I don't know how, you know, that could easily be construed as a straw purchase.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's lots of weird things going on here. The way they set up that law, I think it's unconstitutional. I think it was bad enough that at 18 years old, you couldn't get a handgun permit.
Yeah.
You know, a concealed weapons permit. I thought that was bad enough. But I know that we were talking to at least one of the politicians, the Republicans that voted for that, and actually Keith Perry, and he said that he doesn't think that that you're an adult at 18, 19, or 20.
Really?
Yeah. He says he doesn't even think you should be able to vote. So that was it. I thought that was interesting.
But you can join the service and die for your country.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not accurate here in Florida either. I mean, obviously there's lots of families and everything here, but then there's also lots of people who are 18, 19, 20 years old, and they're living on their own. Mm-hmm. And they need to be able to defend themselves. So I just think that just that part of the bill alone is unconstitutional. They put a lot of things into this bill, which they probably shouldn't have done. They should have dealt with all of these things separately. And then when it comes to like this village doing this stuff in Illinois, what I think Florida has preemption, right? So Gainesville, for example, should not be allowed to just make up its own laws, although Gainesville is always trying.
Yes, they are.
You know, they're always trying, and then we have to push back against that. This stuff, I think, is happening all around the country. People have to get sick and tired of this and stop dealing with it and come to the realization that we all have the right to defend ourselves. That's what the Second Amendment's about.
Do you think this new law in Florida will be challenged?
Well, I think it's already being challenged by the NRA.
Yeah.
And I think it needs to be challenged by other organizations, and it needs to basically go away. It's craziness. And we shouldn't vote for anyone who voted yes for it.
As a school teacher of 25 years, yeah, make the schools safer, okay? You've seen on the internet some of the signs that say, adults in this building may be carrying weapons and will defend their students, using all necessary force. You have a sign like that. If people are trained voluntarily, people are trained, and some of the adults, and it doesn't have to be just teachers, custodians, clerical help, administrators, somebody, a number of people in there, and you put that sign out front, they're not going to have any problems anymore. Yeah,
it doesn't have to be everyone. It doesn't have to be people who don't want to do it. It doesn't have to be people who aren't qualified to do it. Just give. There's always in every segment of a population, there's some people who do have the skills and the ability and the desire to do this, and that would want to stand up if something went wrong in that school.
Yeah. And as long as people know that there are adults in that building that will defend the students, nobody's going to touch them. Yeah.
I think Compton Terry is saying these bans have all stood. The federal courts have not struck down a single one. California has had a ban since 1994. I think one of the problems, like we mentioned in that article, is that the Supreme Court is refusing to take up these kinds of, they're refusing to take this stuff up when it goes to the Supreme Court. So therefore, that makes everything stand.
Hopefully, we can make some changes on the Supreme Court and fix that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Got some justices retiring, and we can get some more guys like this last one, Neil Gorsuch. We should be okay.
Yeah.
I hope so. We'll see what happens there. I know that when you have the very liberal judges that are on the Supreme Court, usually during a presidency like this, they would not want to retire.
That's right.
They're literally like zombie judges.
Yeah. Well, you could see that at the State of the Union when one of them is falling asleep.
Yeah, absolutely. So they don't want to get out of there because they don't, for example, in this case, they don't want Trump to put someone else in there. I'm not really sure, though. I'll tell you guys honestly, I'm not really sure, because a lot of anti-Second Amendment conversation has come out of the White House lately. I find that I'm incredibly disappointed. I don't know where you guys are at on this. We all supported Trump. I'm pretty sure we all voted for him. He's in there, but a lot of this anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment rhetoric is coming out of the White House even. Well,
I know what, I can't think of his name, but he said Trump is not a conservative. He's a pragmatist. He does what he thinks is practical. So you never know what's going to happen. But he does listen. And there is, I'll tell people, there is a way you can get in touch with the president. I mean, maybe not directly. You go to whitehouse.gov/contact. whitehouse.gov/contact. We tell people to do that, and go to whitehouse.gov/contact, and you fill out the form. You have to give them your name and address and all that stuff, because obviously they want to know who it is talking to them.
Sure.
And we always tell people to promote the Fairtax, but you can talk about anything. And I think they're
respectfully, hopefully, and because you don't want
absolutely.
You don't want some guys in black suits showing up at your house.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were talking about the Fairtax. Let's come back to that. For where is this movement? Where does the movement stand for the Fairtax right now around the country? Do we have organizations in every state? How's it going?
Most states, I believe. Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, Texas are very strong with it. And believe it or not, California is quite strong with the Fairtax too. We got some great people out there.
Okay, good. But they need it, man. California is just like a hair away from going the way of the dodo bird.
Yeah, yeah, becoming Venezuela.
Yeah. Well, what's really encouraging is that Georgia is looking at getting rid of their state income tax and adopting a fair tax type, taxing system, complete with the same kind of prebate that the federal fair tax proposal has. Now, that's something that most sales taxes, in fact, no sales tax that I know of that's on the book, has this prebate feature.
Okay.
Georgia is looking at doing that on a state level. And I mean, that's the way the founding fathers envisioned things, that each of the states would kind of like be laboratories for figuring out different ways of doing things. And if Georgia can successfully implement this fair tax like state tax, and we see how well that works. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's going to work. Yeah. I mean, the fair tax at the federal level has over $20 million worth of research behind it to make sure it's not just, smoke and mirrors, that it all works. But if Georgia can get this thing passed on a state level and see what it does for their state economy, then folks have got to start looking at it with a bit more intensity.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. The Tax Act, what do they call it? The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that the president signed in December, all right, H.R. 1, had 24 co-sponsors in the House. We've got 46. Okay, we actually have more co-sponsors for the fair tax. But of course, it is the Speaker of the House that moves the legislation along that he or she wants. So his H.R. 1 got in there, not the fair tax. The president of our national group, Steve Hayes, spent about 3 years making monthly trips to D.C., he and another board member from AFFT. And they had meetings with various congressmen, senators, and their staffers. They made a lot of inroads there. Of course, you have some changeover. So the people up there are aware. But I use this example. H.R. 1, reducing the tax code or the tax rates for corporations and individuals. And you can see what the corporations are doing. They're responding with bonuses to employees, expanding their employee roles, expanding things. Apple said they're moving back $350 billion back to this country, opening up another plant, forecasting hiring another 20,000 people. So we know that when you reduce tax rates, it has a positive effect. Okay. Right.
Every business wants to grow. They all want to get bigger.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they're not going to hide it under some corporate mattress. That's what some people say. Oh, well, the companies, they're just going to keep the money. No, they're not. They're going to do what they can to grow.
As long as there's competition, they want to be the best. That's the kind of the balancing act. So go ahead.
I say that they're making the case for the fair tax because the fair tax would reduce the corporate tax rate from, well, let's see, right now it's 21 to 0. All right. It would reduce the repatriation tax, with money coming back from overseas, reduce that to 0. It gets rid of the income tax. All those things go to 0. So if reducing it 15 or 20% is good, reducing it, completely is even better.
Yeah. Okay. So one second. So I think we had a question here. Watchdog wanted you to give us that White House that White House email address again, and then I'll go into another question.
Yeah, whitehouse.gov/contact.
Yeah. Okay, whitehouse.gov/contact. Yep. Okay, and then what was that? What were you going to say? I think that was Ron, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I'm saying is that what they did in December, what they passed, is making the case for the fair tax. Because the fair tax will reduce the rates. Now, another thing that President Trump did last year, before the tax cuts went into effect, he started reducing regulations. He required the bureaucracy to get rid of 2 unnecessary regulations for 1 new one they put in place, okay? Thereby dropping the regulatory burden on companies. And the economy started to come around in 2017 before the tax cuts took place. Well, the fair tax does that too. If you get rid of the income tax, you get rid of all the compliance headaches for the income tax, which is a huge problem for small companies. So, okay.
And then I think, Bob, you had something to say in there.
No, go ahead. I'm good.
No, go ahead. No, If you want to, did you want to say something?
I did not. My train of thought has been derailed here.
Oh, okay.
in other words,
I think I was just going to give the same White House address was, so we were good.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, so I think there's a couple of things. We have a couple of questions on this. One that I could think of before I take one from here in the audience. If you guys have them, just hit me up with them right now because I'm reading the scroll. So, is there anywhere outside of America in the world where is there a country that is using something like the Fairtax, or extremely similar to that, or no?
not that we're aware of.
No, I guess that European VAT tax is the closest thing to it, but that's really a different animal.
I think,
right, because it has layers, right? Like you're proposing that the Fairtax stands on its own, right? No other tax.
exactly.
The Fairtax is a retail consumption tax. It is paid by the final retail consumer. And that's it. Because if you tax a corporation now, be it mom and pop's grocery store or Exxon Mobil, if you put a tax on a business, that becomes just another cost of doing business. What happens to your cost of doing business? They get rolled downhill to the consumer anyway. Yep. So take all that stuff out of the equation, make it a lot more simple for business to operate. The retail consumer is going to pay it all anyhow. So that's why the Fairtax is levied at the retail consumer level.
Okay.
Makes a lot of sense. There's 45 states that have a sales tax. Do you ever hear in any of those states, including here in Florida where we live, problems with the sales tax? It's so simple and it's anonymous. I mean, you go to the store, you buy something, the sales tax is there, you pay it, you're done.
Yeah, your point of sale software everywhere just handles it.
Yeah.
No problem.
And Bob knows that better than anybody. He was a computer programmer.
Okay, good. So let's say we're talking to the completely uninitiated here, someone who has no idea, how can, as if you were explaining it to a baby, how can we explain the Fairtax in a way that everyone could understand? And mostly I'm saying it's just so that I have like a wraparound and a full understanding of what we're talking about.
The Fairtax is similar, as we said, to the state sales taxes that are already, in place. Now, there are two really main differences. We talked about the prebate that comes with a Fairtax. Now, in fact, all of the state sales taxes that I'm familiar with are what's called exclusive, meaning that they are added on to the price of the item. So a $100 item on the shelf becomes a $108 item at the cash register. They tack on the tax at the end. The Fairtax is inclusive. Means that if the price tag of your item on the shelf is $100, that includes the Fairtax. And when you get your receipt back, you will see that $77 went to the store and $23 was Fairtax of that $100 that you spent. Okay. So again, it's just paid at the cash register anonymously. People are used to doing that, but you get the prebate with the Fairtax, and it's the Fairtax. You can kind of think like the taxes on fuel. When you fill up your car with gas, the $2.50 a gallon, you pump 10 gallons, you pay $25. Nothing's tacked on afterwards. That's the way the Fairtax is going to work. It will be included in the price, but unlike the fuel taxes, you will see it on your receipt when you get it.
Right.
Yeah. So you have the option here. If you don't want to pay it, don't buy that thing, right?
Exactly.
You can control your level of taxation by your spending habits. And again, the Fairtax does not tax used goods. If you need a new car and you don't want to pay the Fairtax, buy a used car. Simple.
Right. Same thing with computers, phones, anything else that you
absolutely anything that is used, only new goods and services. I mean, your barber will have to start collecting the Fairtax, which is really not because the part of what you pay for a haircut ends up at the IRS as the barber's income tax anyway. So again, the Fairtax is just replacing the income tax all the way through the economic system.
Right. Okay. Now it makes a lot of sense to me. There's a couple of things here that I would like to ask. I'm just trying to see if anyone here, the Tyven Show wants to know what would be the percent rate of the Fairtax.
23% inclusive.
Yeah.
And again, that rate was arrived at. We said that there's over $20 million worth of research. This came out of some business people in Houston, Texas, who spent an entire day, in their business meeting and realized at the end of the day, they had spent about 80% of their time trying to figure out the tax consequences of all of their decisions rather than how can we help the business? And they decided there's got to be a better way to do this. So they put up like $20 million of their own money. and commissioned some of the finest economists from the most prestigious universities in the country to start with a blank sheet of paper and design the best tax system possible that would raise the same amount of revenue for the federal government. And they could have done anything. And it was not called a fair tax, right out of the box. But what they came up with, what these economists came up with, private sector economists came up with, was the fair tax. It picked up that name a bit later when somebody was describing it to somebody and says, hey, well, that's a fair tax. And the name stuck.
Okay.
But that's how that came about.
Okay. And so I've got Andrew Slade says no tax, federal income only. What do you say to things like that? Yeah.
There's no tax on income at all. The fair tax is a consumption tax. You pay it at the cash register when you buy things, period. So you could win the lottery, you can, work for your wages, you can inherit a lot of money. Doesn't matter how you get it, how you make your money or where you make your money, it's not taxed under the fair tax until you spend it on retail purchases, new goods and services. If you save it, no tax. If you invest it, no tax. If you give it to your kids, no tax. No tax under the fair tax until you make a retail purchase of new goods and services.
Okay. And so Justin E says some prices will drop, a few will go up slightly. Do you find that to be accurate?
We have one of our board members here in Florida, and she's also on the board of the national group, Dr. Karen Walby. She's our research director. She says that prices may go up about 10, 13%. However, it's not just what happens to the prices. You've got to look at your purchasing power. You're going to get your entire paycheck. There'll be no withholding. So think about getting your paycheck with no federal withholding.
And no payroll taxes either for Social Security and Medicare. Social Security and Medicare are funded through the fair tax, but because right now the only people that are funding Social Security and Medicare are those who are working for a paycheck.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say to you. I mean, this probably sounds attractive to those of us that work and generate income, but to the people who don't, but still every year file taxes and get a lot of money back, even though they don't pay taxes, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. That might not sound too good to those folks.
Well, it'll sound good to most folks.
Dr. Walby has done a lot of research, and she said every segment, every demographic is going to come out better under the fair tax, some more than others. But the people who will benefit the most are the people that most need it, the working poor, the people who are just getting by, all right? They're making just enough money to put food on the table, clothes on their back, and a roof over their head, okay? Those are the people that are going to benefit the most because, yes, even though the price of everything they will buy will go up a bit, they're going to get, one, their entire paycheck. Two, they're going to get the prebate.
Right, that's what you're saying. So that exempts them up to a certain level from having to pay, right?
Now, the one thing that's not going to happen that some demagogues will tell you is that the fair tax will raise the price of everything by 23% since it's a 23% tax.
That's not.
But they don't tell you that replaces the income tax, takes a lot of cost of doing business out of the price of the products that you buy. So as Karen says, the prices will rise a little bit, but your purchasing power under the fair tax will be greater because you're bringing home your full paycheck and you're getting the prebate.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Now let me hit up another question here. Compton Terry actually is a comment. He says, I'm an economist. Tax policy is extremely complicated.
Yes, that's true.
I'm not an economist, and I agree with that.
we know a CPA out in Denver who's been on our program a couple of times.
Yep.
And he talks about just how, it's his business to mess with the tax code. And he'll tell you right to your head, he can't begin to figure it all out. There's nobody in the world that can figure the whole thing. It's 75,000 pages for crying out loud. So
yeah, that's insane. Yeah. Is there an audible version of that?
An audible version of what?
Of the 75,000 pages?
No,
I can use that to help me go to sleep at night.
That's not on an audio book that I know of. But you can get the Fairtax book on audiobooks. I think Neil Bortz himself read it.
Yeah.
Right.
You try to hire somebody to create an audio version of the tax code.
The problem is that the tax code changes every day. One of the things we do on our Fairtax Power Radio podcast is we take a look at congress.gov, where you can look at all of the legislation that's been introduced into this legislative session. I got a little search function there. So you go there and you type in internal revenue code, put that in quotes so it's a string, and see how many bills in Congress are, to amend the internal revenue code is how that works. And then we checked that today. We did a podcast today, and there's over 1,200 that have been introduced since the beginning of Congress. I mean, that is 4 or 5 a day.
Wow.
1,200.
Over 1,200 proposed changes to the tax code in this congressional session alone.
Wow.
Now, not all of those are going to become law, but a lot of them will.
Yeah, it's a little bit. And some of them are really ripe, like the one that wanted to, this was a proposal for the tax code to change the definition of municipal solid waste.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our tax code contains a definition of municipal solid waste.
You're talking about poop.
That could be. We're guessing, obviously, some company somewhere that deals in the disposition of municipal solid waste wanted a tax break for somehow. So they had to define what this thing is that, if you deal with this, and this, then that's municipal solid waste and you can get a tax break on it. It's insane, the stuff that's in our tax code.
What a country.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, I know you guys mentioned,
check that out.
Right. Okay. I know you guys mentioned your podcast, so I'm sure that, we're having you on today, but if there are folks out there that are interested in this, how can they connect with your podcast that you guys have?
Well, our main podcast platform is Spreaker. It's like speaker with an R, Spreaker.com. You go to Spreaker.com, look for Fairtax Power Radio or the Fairtax Guys, and you'll find our page. Now, the nice thing about Spreaker is that you can set it up. It automatically branches out to iTunes. So if you have people that are already getting podcasts off of iTunes, we're there. Okay. We're also on iHeartRadio, and we have a free app. Go to your app store and look for Fairtax Power Radio for either the iPhone or the Android. And we're there too. And that's probably about the easiest way. You download that free app, and once it's downloaded, it has our podcast there. You can listen to them, plug them into your car radio or whatever.
And we're on YouTube as well.
And yes, Spreaker also sends it to YouTube. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I guarantee you it's better than reading the actual 75. Well, how many pages? 75,000 pages?
75,000 plus. That's the tax code plus the regulations plus some of the case law that's been decided there.
Yeah, I think we should beat the people who came up with those pages. We should beat them with the pages.
I'm with you on that, brother. No problem at all.
You
should line them up.
We're going to drop the code on you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let me get to some more comments and questions.
Sure.
Joshua Levy says, as long as the Federal Reserve continues to exist, changing the tax code won't fix anything. We will continue to go deeper into debt, and we will remain enslaved by an international private bank. What do you guys think about that?
Not a very optimistic view, is it?
No, actually, understand that the fair tax is a revenue bill only. It has absolutely nothing to do with the spending side of the equation. It was designed to raise the same amount of revenue for the federal government that the income tax does. Now, if Congress continues to spend more than they make, whether it comes in through the income tax or whether it comes in through the fair tax, that's a debate and a problem for a different day. But what's going to happen too is the fair tax, Mike Huckabee has said this, would be rocket fuel for the economy. Mm-hmm. And we saw what happened in the 80s when President Reagan cut the tax rates and the actual dollar amount of revenue just skyrocketed. So the way that the fair tax is going to be, it's going to bring jobs back. It's going to stimulate the economy like nothing else. So there will be a lot more, revenue coming into the federal government under the fair tax than there would be under the income tax. Now, whether it's going to be enough to erase the deficit and erase the debt that we're in, that's just, we're going to have to rein in the spending side as well. But that's beyond the scope of what the fair tax does.
Yeah, the omnibus bill that Congress passed last month. That's not a good idea. I mean, if they keep spending like that, I'm not sure what's going to help. I mean, we're going to have to rein in those politicians too, which means everybody listening, you have to vote. Yes. All right. You have to vote for people that are fiscally solid and that will pass the fair tax.
What we need is a convention of states and term limits, because they're never going to put term limits on themselves.
Yeah, right. Yeah. By the way, we've crossed into the 8 o'clock, over actually the 8 o'clock hour. I know we started a little bit late, so I just want to remind everyone that a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, like hankstrange.tv, is in the description, as well as Big Daddy Unlimited. There's links to that in the description. We're also on iTunes. These guys are talking about their podcast. Definitely check it out. We're also on iTunes. I just want to remind you of that. I'm going to try to go through and get to a lot of stuff. Andrew Mitchie says, that sounds absurd. How can the government / kingdom make money? And Armament and Axis says the government won't go for a pay cut for themselves. So
it's not a pay cut. It's not a pay cut. Part of the research is to what percentage, and they came up with the 23%, will fund the government at its current rate. Right. One of the problems with our government right now, and controlled by the Republicans, is that they're spending too much. I mean, they had double-digit increases in a lot of departments in the federal government. Why? Does any of our household have double-digit increases in our budgets? No.
We can't print money. We can't spend more than we make, but the government does, and they're just addicted to buying votes in that matter.
Yeah, now you guys are making sense. I can just tell you that you're making sense. The problem is, basically, in order to get what you're talking about, we need a revolution in America, because the people who are getting fat and comfortable off of all these taxes that those of us that generate this income to pay these taxes make, they're never giving it up. It's like having a big, massive mosquito sitting on your body, sucking the blood out of you to the point that it's gotten bigger than you.
Yeah. Well, our job is to convince people that the fair tax is better than the income tax. And when we succeed in reaching enough people so that voting and supporting the fair tax becomes a ballot box winner and opposing the fair tax becomes a ballot box loser, that's when we're going to get it. And so we realize that we're, that we still have to continue to educate the electorate. And the little catchphrase we use on Fairtax Power Radio, once you understand it, you'll demand it. And when we can reach enough people through the podcast, through your help here as well, through everything that we do, then when enough, I've never met anybody that I've explained the fair tax to that didn't like it.
Right.
They think it's just such a much better way. But so far, there are not enough people that really understand it, and not enough people that are demanding it of their Congress people. So our job is just to create enough folks out there that do understand it, will demand it until it becomes a winning issue at the ballot box, because we understand that's the only way we're going to get it passed.
I think one of the reasons for that is that it's not sexy enough for the general public out there. I think it's pretty damn sexy myself, right? Like you said, if you really think about what's going on here, it's a sexy thought. But most people are caught up in other things. But we need to. There's lots of things we need to clean up in America. There's lots of things that we need to change, not just because not just for us gun guys or people who think exactly the way we do, for the entirety of America.
Well, the problem
we need to change things.
Nobody working for a paycheck today has known anything but the income tax. So nobody has ever lived under a situation where there is no income tax. So people just say, oh, that's the way it is. There's nothing we can do about it. And the politicians are doing all they can to foster that thought.
Well, that's damn wrong. We can do stuff about it, because ultimately, all these things that we ask people for, like, give us, I almost said give us free, because it reminds me of Amistad, to be honest with you, right? I don't know if anyone's ever seen that movie. It's like, these slaves, they wound up here in America and they wanted to be free, and they went through this whole thing. You were born free. If you're, as a human being, you're born into this planet. No matter where you were born on the face of this planet, you were born free. Governments take that away from you. It's the same thing with everything. We were born with the rights to what we produce and what we generate. But the government and people come along and say, "Oh, we're going to take that from you." That's what the hell a tax is. They decide to take that from you, and then they trick you. It's like the elephant that they condition him that they could just put a string around his foot, and then he stays there like it's a big heavy chain, because you think that you have to go through this, that you have to pay these taxes, and people just have to get out of that mindset. Exhale asked this question. He wants to know, so are the states going to slap their tax on top of the federal tax?
That will probably vary by state. My guess is that when the fair tax becomes law, that a lot of states are going to do what Georgia does and at least adapt theirs to be in the same way. But the fair tax is strictly a federal issue, and how New York is going to handle, if they're going to keep their state sales tax, if these states want to keep their state sales tax, that will vary from state to state. So we really can't
what
speak.
The people let them get away with, I think.
I mean, that's why that state let them get away with, right?
Well, there's another issue. I've been told here in Florida by some of the people who've been at this longer than I have, that the Florida sales tax, which is 6%, if they made it across the board, 6% on everything with no exceptions, they could probably reduce it to 1 or 2%. So they could actually make it a smaller sales tax, but collect it on everything across the board, which is the way the fair tax works. The fair tax is tax on everything except education. Education is exempted because they want people to gain an education, because they get an education, they earn more, and they spend more.
Right. You know, if you're trying to talk sense to states like California and New York, good luck to you.
Yeah,
that doesn't actually.
I understand that.
That's why I live in Florida and not New York anymore.
Yeah, I grew up in New York, so I know how that goes. So here we go. Cyrus 308 has this question. He says, ask the fellas from let's see, the government takes 3.3 trillion. What would this number be under the consumption tax? And that question is from KT in Compton. But, you know, these guys are trying to make sure I ask the question because everything's scrolling up here really fast.
Well, as we've said before, the fair tax was designed and the 23% rate was set, you know, as a result of all this research that they did into it. And the design goal of the fair tax was create the same amount of revenue for the federal government that the income tax makes. So that's what the level of revenue to the federal government under the fair tax will be, you know, pretty much the same as it is now. The spending side of the equation is a whole different ballgame.
There is one advantage, though, to a consumption tax as a source of revenue instead of an income tax. The economy, you know, ebbs and flows. I mean, sometimes it goes bad, sometimes it gets better, and so forth. A consumption tax is much more stable because people spend. People will still have to spend, all right? Whereas an income tax will waver a lot as the economy goes up and down. So the revenues to the government are more stable with a consumption tax than they are with an income tax. So that's another benefit of the fair tax. And like Bob says, it's revenue neutral. The fair tax is designed to be revenue neutral. It's going to give the government the same amount of funding that's going now. The problem, as we already discussed, is that their spending habits are out of control.
Yeah. Now, so that brings up something that someone was trying to get me to ask you guys. And by the way, there's lots of questions and things like that coming in. I know people are texting me on my phone. I don't even have my phone. It's over there. I can hear it. I can hear it dinging and going off, but it's connected to one of the computers over there because I am trying to get all the photos and videos and stuff like that off my phone before I go on my trip. So I will get around to people's stuff. But someone, I mean, someone mentioned that a lot of the taxes that we have go back to wars, right? And the government deciding that in order to pay for these wars, they're going to tax the people. So
that's how withholding came into being.
Right, exactly. So now I want to connect that to this question. If we have something like the fair tax and there's a war going on that the majority of us in the country don't agree with, can we go on strike against this and refuse to buy stuff and therefore defund the wars? Well, and how do those two things, how does that balance out?
You can refuse to buy stuff all you want.
But you got to eat.
But you have to eat. You usually pretty have to have fuel for your car and stuff like that. But yeah, if the only way that you can reduce your fair tax is to spend less or buy used.
That's right. But you are in control. All right. You, the individual, the family, are in control of your spending habits.
What you can't do is go into Walmart and say, I'm not going to pay the tax on this purchase.
Right.
You cannot get away with that.
You could try it.
Won't get very far.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
That brings up another issue. We got to talk about evasion of the current income tax.
Right.
The AFFT commissioned a study that was finished a year ago last month. A guy a professor in Jacksonville, Florida, who's an expert on income tax evasion. Income tax evasion is a huge problem that Congress is ignoring. Right now, last year for 2017, he figured it was $693 billion. $693 billion that was not collected because people are cheating. And it's getting worse. It's about 20%. So 1 in 5 people are not paying their income tax. Try to evade a sales tax. Like Bob just mentioned, how do you evade a sales tax?
Yeah, only by committing a crime.
Only by not buying something.
Yeah, or trying to steal that thing, or or rob those guys at gunpoint. which hopefully everyone will be armed and you will get your comeuppance.
There you go.
Yes,
You know.
absolutely.
Yeah. So, there's quite a few questions that are coming in here. Let me see.
Good.
Let me try to take one. Justin E says the biggest argument against people say the 1% will not pay as much taxes. Can you guys help out with this question? Like, under this, will the 1% get away without paying taxes?
Yeah, absolutely.
They will not get away with that.
No, they won't. In fact, I can't hold it up to the camera here, but there is a graph. If you go on to Fairtax.org and you look at the white papers, all right, and there is a white paper there. Look at the frequently asked questions and look at the white papers, and there is a graph that shows the people that are just getting by, like a family of four, according to our prebate schedule, a family of four is it takes about $32,920. This is a figure from Health and Human Services, a federal agency, okay, in the 48 contiguous states, all right? They would get a prebate of $631. They're going to break even, all right? They're going to earn just enough to maintain that family, and the prebate is going to reimburse them for the fair tax they're paying on the basic necessities. Now, as you go, let's say they get a raise, things go well at work and they get a raise. Now they're earning $50,000 the next year. They get the same prebate because it's still a family of four. And if they choose to spend that entire $50,000, their effective tax rate is a little higher. So the more you spend, the more you earn and spend, the higher your effective tax rate. And when you get up to be about spending $1 million a year, your effective tax rate is like right around 22 point something percent.
The deal is with a consumption tax, there are no tax havens.
Yeah.
You can't send your money to the Cayman Islands to avoid taxation. If you spend it under the fair tax, you're going to be taxed, period.
Right. Yeah.
It is mathematically impossible. We use the Warren Buffett thing that paid a lower tax rate than his secretary did. Well, the only way that happens under the fair tax is if the secretary spends more money than Warren Buffett does. The more you spend, the more you take out of your pocket to pay the fair tax. It's a mathematical certainty.
Yeah. And let's say that rich person orders a yacht from overseas and has it delivered. Once it comes into this country, it's subject to the fair tax.
Okay. So, if this makes
1% are going to pay.
Yeah, absolutely.
The question concerned about the 1%, if they continue to spend, at 1% levels, you don't evade the consumption tax.
No, they would have to at least fuel up, right? They would have to fuel up the yacht.
All kinds of tricks that the 1% uses to avoid the income tax and evade the income tax. Can't do that with a consumption tax. So they will pay it's mathematically impossible not to pay your fair share with a fair tax.
Okay, so let me we'll show some Gorn. By the way, guys, that's gun porn. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the folks asked for that. I just wanted to let you know. I don't know if you know about that or not. So we will show some gun stuff here in a second. Absolutely. I think this is a good conversation.
All right,
here's a question. Yeah. Here's a question. Well, let's hold off on that for a sec. The question I wanted to ask, if this makes so much sense, it sounds reasonable, all of that good stuff, how come we don't have it? Why don't we have it right now? Why isn't this the law of the land?
Well, the short answer is because the politicians are addicted to the campaign cash that K Street lobbyists pay out.
Yeah, those 1,200 proposals to change the tax code?
There's a lobbyist behind just about every one of them.
Yeah.
So we don't get it because the politicians are writing the tax code to benefit themselves rather than to benefit the people. It's that simple.
Right. Yeah. So there's a lot of I see there's a lot of chatter out there. People say they don't see how this can ever be enacted. I think it's going to be a heavy lift because it's runs counter to what the politicians' best interests for themselves are. Right. And then that's why there's got to be enough people out there demanding it that politicians realize if they don't support it, they're going to lose. Until that happens, then we've got a really heavy lift in front of us.
So right. The people who are listening, you can help out by letting other people know about the Fairtax podcast. All right. That's a good way. We have a half-hour podcast. A new one is posted every Friday morning. That's one way. Tell people to go to fairtax.org. We depend on you. We don't have enough money to run flashy TV ads nationwide. That takes big bucks. We don't have that, all right? But we do have people, and we have people that vote. And you folks need to talk to each other. You need to tell other people about the Fairtax. Study up, buy the book. You know, the book by Bortz and Linder. There's actually 2 of them. And I would suggest buying the one with the red cover. It was published in 08.
White one first and then the red one.
Yeah. So,
yeah, he had another question for us here, though.
Yeah, I think Joshua Levy says the 1% already pay 40% of the taxes. What do you guys say to that?
That's true. They do pay a lot of taxes. Yeah.
Well, just like we said, under the Fairtax, the more you spend, the more you take out of your pocket, period. And if you've got, $15 million in disposable income, you're going to spend more money than somebody that only has $20,000 in disposable income.
Yeah, it's that simple.
Real simple.
Yeah. Atomic Bull says, no way it's happening. This government will keep the current tax system and add a consumption tax to it. That's way more likely. What do you say? What do you say to that? It doesn't work like that, right? I mean, that's just raising taxes, basically.
No, because in the tax bill, by the way, the Fairtax bill, HR 25 in the House and S 18 in the Senate, it's 130 something pages long. That's it. And a good portion of that rescinds the current tax code. A good portion of that, when it's signed by the president, rescinds the current tax code, allows the IRS to finish up what they're doing. They got 3 years to finish up and then they're gone. The other provision is that it gives sister legislation will have to repeal the 16th Amendment. It is required in the Fairtax bill that the 16th Amendment be repealed. If the 16th Amendment is not repealed within the normal 7 years, then the Fairtax goes away, the income tax goes back in place.
What's the 16th Amendment?
The 16th Amendment was ratified in 1913. As originally written, the Constitution prohibited an income tax. They said not going to do that. And it was challenged in court. And in the late 1800s, the Supreme Court ruled an income tax unconstitutional. So the folks that wanted to put in this income tax had to get a constitutional amendment through that specifically allowed the federal government to levy an income tax. And that was the 13th Amendment. And of course, the not 13th, 16th Amendment. It's in 1913. I'm getting that. But of course, it was originally sold as, oh, this is just going to be a little tax. It's only going to hit a few people, the very richest. So go ahead and give us this authority because it's not going to mess with you. And within 30 years, less than a generation, it was hitting everybody, and they were taking money out of your paycheck. That's when withholding came along during World War II.
That reminds
morphed
me
into something really nasty, really fast.
Absolutely. That reminds me of the guy who says, it's just a tip, baby. That's what that sounds like. So, and it's never just a tip, never just a little bit. So, okay, hold on one second. Let me see. LV Louis Cypher says that his sugar mama is a tax pro and about to go to law school to be a tax attorney, and she'd never go for this because it would put her out of business.
Not so. We've got a friend, as we mentioned earlier, we've got a friend in Denver, Colorado, who is a CPA for one of the biggest accounting firms in the country. And he has said, yes, tax things are one of the things that CPAs and accountants do, but they have got several other lines of business which they help people. And if that particular, tax preparation stuff goes away, there will still be plenty of things to do for the accounting folks to do that.
This guy works for one of the big 4 accounting firms. He knows what he's talking about. He found our podcasts and he sent us a short email. And that's what it said. He sent us just a short email to tell you guys, I like what you're doing. His short email was two pages, single spaced. All right. I guess that's short to an accountant. And he told us because he happened to be in Florida on a business trip. So he came to the Bob studio and recorded a couple of episodes of Fairtax Power Radio. He said, CPAs are trained to be skeptical. So when I heard about this from my brother, I was very skeptical and I kept reading it. Now, he not only read the books, he read the legislation. He read the research papers. He read the research papers, Hank. I mean, and he understood them.
This guy has time.
And he has become a true believer. I mean, this guy knows his stuff.
Yeah.
So, no.
The bottom line is it will not put them out of business. It will just direct their business in another direction.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. Let me, so Compton Terry has another question or comment. He says, currently the government takes a 3.3 trillion in total tax revenue. What would this number be under the consumption tax?
Same.
The same.
Okay.
Same. Yep.
Fair tax is revenue neutral.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, we can keep going here. We should probably take a little bit of a break. Well, actually, I know someone wanted to know about schools. What about schools, roads, public school funding, etc.? What would happen?
Those are revenue issues, and that's not part of what the fair tax is for. The fair tax is, I'm sorry, those are spending issues. The fair tax is a revenue issue. It only tells Congress how it gets the money. Congress still has to make decisions on how it spends the money. But it's going to take all this wrangling about the tax code away because the fair tax is simple. The only thing Congress can do is change the tax rate. They can do that. But if they do, they change it for everybody. They can't play class warfare. They can't play favorites. Okay. So it'll let Congress concentrate on spending and we can pay more attention to what they're doing.
But when the fair tax lights up the economy, like the, you know, space shuttle used to light up the night sky out here, there will be more money coming into the federal government with the same 23% rate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay. And then who says, or his name is Who Say, wants to know what about the state taxes, which I know we discussed before, you know, and I recommend lots of people who are jumping in now. First of all, click the thumbs ups because we need those. That's one. Give us as many thumbs ups as possible. Okay, that helps get the message out there. But if you're just now jumping back, if you go back to the beginning of this, you'll find some very informative information about zombie raccoons, as well as some good information from Bob and
again, the fair tax is a national issue, and what different states are going to do with their state taxes just kind of remains to be seen, and is no doubt going to vary from state to state. So we can't really discuss that because we don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's some other things here. Bill Gates says fraud would be rampant.
Fraud is rampant under the current system. Fraud would go way down under the fair tax. How do you evade the fair tax?
Yeah.
You don't.
Yeah.
When you buy things, it's included in the price.
Do you see frequent newspaper articles about somebody defrauding the sales tax? It's very hard to do. Okay. But there's lots of articles about identity thefts through the income tax because somebody's hacked into the IRS computers, which are pretty old, by the way. Lots of problems. People file their income tax and the IRS reports back and said, we already got your tax return.
Yeah.
So getting rid of fraud is one of the biggest reasons to pass the fair tax.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is also an issue, like when you're talking about, you know, we have this issue with the people that are trying to take guns away from us. They say the solutions to the problems that people have in America right now, people around the world, is to take away guns from us. And that's not true, right? Because people are going to find ways of committing acts of violence against people. What guns do is allow us to defend ourselves against those people. Yeah, well, I think the same thing goes for everything else. You know, there's always going to be those people out there that try to evade taxes or find ways and do workarounds and all that kind of stuff.
But you could not start with a blank piece of paper and design a more fraud prone, a more error prone, or a more intrusive system than the income tax we've got now. You just couldn't do it.
Yeah. And the states, 45, by the way, the fair tax will be collected by the states. They'll be collected at the point of sale by the vendor, passed on to the state taxing authority. All right. The vendor will get a small stipend for their troubles, and the state will get 0.25% of what they collect too. The 45 of the 50 states already have a sales tax. They know what to do. They know how to find fraud, and they know how to deal with these people. You don't want to try to defraud the state of Florida with, you know, if you're collecting a sales tax, because they will come down on you like a ton of bricks.
Yeah, they don't mess around. Efrain Rodriguez has a good question. Did you have a comment there, Bob? Sorry.
I was just going to say that with the fair tax right now, the enforcement points, if you will, goes from, you know, 180 million individuals like we've got under the income tax to a much smaller number of you know, vendors and retailers.
Yeah.
So the enforcement will be a lot easier to do because there's be a lot fewer, you know, people to audit, if you will.
And instead of one agency trying to enforce it, they'll have 50 agencies, each state. Now,
Yeah.
for the 5 states that don't have a sales tax, they can either implement one on their own, an adjacent state can help them and do it for them, or they can have the federal government come in.
Yeah.
I don't recommend the last one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead with the next question.
Yes. So yeah, I was trying to take a break, but I think this is actually, and not like stop the show, but go to some other things, which we are going to do. We are going to get to some gun porn. Yes. For the folks out there that want to know, Efrain Rodriguez says drug dealers taxed, exclamation point.
Drug dealers will be taxed when they buy things. They're not taxed now because they don't report their illicit income on a federal income tax return.
They have to eat.
But when they buy things, when they buy their big fancy cars and their airplanes and their food, anything else they need, a drug dealer, anybody that's making cash under the table that is not being reported for federal tax purposes now becomes a taxpayer when they buy stuff in the retail store.
There you go.
I think there's a couple of things going on here. One, on a serious level, this is why. Have you guys ever seen? Do you guys know what donks are? Do you know
I
what
do
that
not.
is? Yeah. Have you ever seen these old classic cars from like the 70s, and they have these big, massive wheels, and they're jacked up off the ground?
Yes. Yeah, I have.
The reason, okay, so those are called donks. Jim.
Oh, okay.
I just educated you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Wait a minute. I'm over 70. Old classic cars are like 30s and 40s to me. Okay.
Oh, well, yeah, of course. I think what I was
like
gonna,
my Superbird, my 70s Superbird. I want
yeah,
that.
actually, these guys, in some cases, they ruin some pretty cool cars. But
Yes.
the thing I was going to say to you, the reason why you see that here in Florida and other places a lot is because if you spend over $9,999, it has to get reported, right? So what those guys do is they go buy those 70s cars because that's what they can buy. Those are getting more expensive. So now they're going up to like 80s cars. You'll notice that's why you'll notice that's going now towards 80s and 90s cars, right? So they have to buy a car under that amount of money. They buy it under that amount of money, and then they spend a bunch of money that they're making to do all these crazy things so they can look like they're balling, and they have a really nice car. That's one of the reasons for that. That's why, first of all, that's why you guys see those donks going around, which now you'll know. Like
now I know what they are.
When you're out driving around the streets here now and you see one of those,
I know what they're called. There's a lot of them around here.
Yeah, like they're donks. They're donks. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing is, I mean, I think even with the question with drugs and everything, I think that's one of the problems that we have. My personal opinion, that there's a lot of stuff that really should not be illegal because all it's doing is creating these kinds of industries, right? Where there's people out there selling drugs and doing all the things related to that, just like you have with prohibition here in America. And they're generating a lot of money because they've made this thing into a gray market, or black market item.
Yep. Yep. You mentioned prohibition. Great example. I mean, that was a colossal failure, and I agree with you.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's any other, you know what? Let's go to some gun stuff here for a second.
Do it.
Go for it.
Yeah, let's do that here. And then we'll come back to this. I'm sure there'll be more comments and questions and all that kind of stuff.
Your audience is dying for some gun stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did promise this. I did promise this at the beginning. So this is the Kel-Tec PMR 30. Like I said, 22 Magnum. It goes in this magazine. This is a 30 round magazine. I usually put about 25 rounds in there because 22 Magnum has a very soft shell casing, so you have to be careful how you stack those up in here. You could bend them and do all kinds of things, get rim lock, etc. It's rim fire. Is one of the problems, right, with 22 Magnum. So you can run into some issues, but it's a very, very lightweight gun. I think the retail price on something like this is like $3.99 or something like that. They're becoming more and more available. There's lots of different colors out there. This is a really nice one. So anyway, just wanted to share that with the folks. I don't know if anyone has questions on that out there. And then let me see. Are you guys, what kind of guns are you guys into? I'm into bullpups.
I have 2 handguns.
Oh, okay. Very cool.
Yeah, I've got a Glock 19 and the Smith & Wesson M&P Shield.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Very nice. Very nice choices. What about you?
I got a SIG 9mm, and I got a 380 for my wife. She has arthritis in her fingers, and that's the only thing she can rack.
Oh, Okay. Yes, I understand that. I understand that. So no. So you guys are saying no bullpups? Well,
Not that I'm opposed to it. I just don't have.
yeah, this is like one of the classically popular bullpups, the Steyr. So we've got one here. This is not mine. This belongs to Big Daddy Guns. We were talking about them before, and I borrowed this one. I am trying to get one. Trying to get my hands on that. Now, this is like a contrast to the PMR 30. This is a 5.7 pistol from FN 5.7. And I think, what is this? I think this is like 25 rounds that goes in here, 5.7 center fire. Very fast traveling round, also very light gun. The PMR 30 is the poor man's 5.7.
Okay, that works.
You know, you guys might not understand that, but I think that there's people out there that know what I'm talking about. They're kind of similar. This is like, you know, so let's say Mercedes, Volkswagen.
Okay.
Mercedes, Volkswagen.
Hey, that works.
Yeah, that's what's going on with that. Let's see. Let's see what so okay, so someone wants to know if you guys know what bullpups are. Do you know what a bullpup is?
That used to be a missile.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, there was a military missile by that name a while back. It's been a while.
Yeah. And you know, there's obviously like bulldog puppies or bullpups, I guess. But basically a bullpup is all the action takes place behind the trigger.
Okay.
So so because of that, you have a smaller form. It's the same, you have the same barrel length, even though it looks like a shorter barrel here. The barrel goes further back. Yeah. Yeah. So, and everything is taking place back here. That's why this is your magazine well right here.
Okay.
So it makes a shorter format. So if you had a short barrel rifle would be like a normal rifle with a shorter barrel, right? You have to do paperwork and everything for that. It's an SBR. You have to do paperwork with the ATF and everything to have it. This, you don't have to do that because you have the required 16-inch barrel length. But just the way that it's built, it gives it a shorter thing, so you can move around. So that's where these have been around. I think people will probably tell me that I'm wrong, but I think these have been around since like the 50s.
Oh, really?
I may have to snag me one.
Yeah, absolutely. Very nice. I collect bullpups, so I don't really know. Don't tell these guys, but I don't really know anything about guns. So, let's see if there's any other questions in here. Okay, I can't see. Okay, someone said it's a nice AUG. That's actually a Steyr AUG. I'm trying to get my hands on one myself. You know, like basically, I think with like anything else, you collect what you like. What kind of stuff are you guys into? Obviously, I know you do a lot of work for Fairtax and all of that. I know you're gun guys. You have your concealed weapons permits. What do you dudes do for fun other than that?
I collect railroad signals.
Oh,
there's nothing wrong with that.
Yes, he does. He does.
Yeah,
I do. I've got an H2 searchlight and I've got a magnetic flagman wigwag crossing signal.
I'm not sure.
Only railroad people will understand what I'm saying.
Are these working railroad things?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
So these are in your house and
The H2 is in my house. The searchlight signal's in my house. My wigwag's out on the back porch.
Oh, cool.
Right.
Okay, so you can set that off whenever you want, huh?
Well,
yeah,
I don't know if this will work.
Oh, here, I'll lock it on you guys. Hold on, I'll lock it on you. Just hold it up to the camera. Hold it up closer. Yeah, there you go. A little bit closer. Yeah, okay. Yeah, right there. That's good.
Yep, there it is. In all its radiant glory.
I'm guessing.
He shot that. That's my wigwag. He shot that this afternoon.
Oh, cool. Cool. Does your wife love that?
My wife doesn't really care one way or the other.
Oh, okay, good, good. Yeah, you have to have a very understanding wife to have.
Yeah, I do.
So how did you get into this?
I've just always liked trains.
Oh, okay.
Collecting some railroad memorabilia. And I got a friend of mine in Ocala who just lives and breathes railroading. So some of him kind of rubbed off.
Yep.
Yeah. Of course, I collect Rubik's Cubes.
Oh, yes, I saw that when you came in. That was cool. What is that? Go ahead, hold that up to the camera again. That's pretty cool. I saw that in your hand when you came in.
This is called a Mega Binks. It's got 12 faces on it, but it actually solves pretty much like a 3x3 Rubik's Cube. I've got 3 dozen Rubik's Cubes at the house, from 2x2 all the way up to 9x9. And of course, I can solve them all because they all solve the same way. But this is kind of cool. This takes about 6 minutes for me to solve.
Oh, really? Okay, I would like to see you unsolve that one and resolve it in whatever time we have left. How about that?
Yeah. Okay. I
He
can
would
do
love
that.
to.
You're up to the challenge. Okay.
I am up to the challenge.
Yeah, Bob, make sure that's nicely mixed up. We don't let him
Oh,
mix it up however he wants to, Bob. We want you to mix that up a little. Matter of fact, I'm gonna send my production assistant over there to mix that. Don't mix it up. Make sure it's properly mixed up here. We don't want to cheat the people. So, Bob, while he's doing that, Bob, what are you into?
Ron,
I'm sorry. I'm mixing you guys up. Ron, what are you into?
My wife and I get out and torture ourselves on the golf course. We actually live in a golf course community, and we do enjoy it. But since I became president of the Florida Fairtax, I've really been spending a lot of time on this. Like I said, we thought we were going to retire and do this a little bit, but it's turned into a full-time job. But it's because we're passionate about it. We have 7 grandchildren. We're very concerned about the direction of the country. The Fairtax will help us turn things around. It really will. It'll get the government. Bob and I did a podcast that's going to go live at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. And what we did was we took my tax software and we went through the income portion of it. And it's amazing, Hank, the different types of things of income that the IRS wants a piece of, even to the point where somebody has to do a short sale on their house. And I know somebody that bought a house, a nice house, the market tanked, then their company moved them out of state and they had to sell the house and they couldn't because they owed a lot more, okay? So they had to do a short sale. The IRS will tax you on the amount of money that was relieved by that short sale. Yeah, that's crazy.
Ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Okay, you could tell my production assistant right now to give that back to. I think he's fairly. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, his name is Gabe.
Okay, well, we'll hold it up here and let everybody take a look at it.
Let the folks see it. Here, hold on. I'm gonna lock this on you so the people can watch. And make sure that there's no trickery going on here. Okay, go ahead. Have at it.
That's pretty well scrambled. It'll take about 6 or 7 minutes to do this.
Okay, let's see how you do this.
Okay.
So, have you been playing golf for a long time, Ron?
Let's see now, 18, about 12 years.
Oh, okay, cool. I was just wondering if you were doing that when you were in New York.
Still haven't broke 90.
Okay. Okay.
But one day I'm going to retire and actually play a little more golf. But right now, my wife, Florida is a great place. I mean, even in the wintertime, you can go out and enjoy what would up north be a nice spring day, get out on the golf course for, 3.5, 4 hours. And even though it's sometimes kind of frustrating, it's still rewarding. Yes. It's a nice sport. So
that's almost as much fun as shooting 250 at your bowling league today.
Somebody's bragging.
Oh yeah. Okay. So obviously it's not just Rubik's cubes and
yeah, I'm into bowling as well.
Yeah.
So and of course, one of the things that we had a little argument one time that there was a bill in Congress that wanted to make, since golf is good exercise and good for you physically, they wanted, no, they actually wanted to make a tax exemption that golf equipment, you'd get a tax break. And I said, well, that's no fair that you golfers get a break on your equipment that we bowlers don't.
We had an argument on the Fairtax Power Radio about that.
Yeah, if they're going to give someone a tax break, they need to give the gun guys. Because
yes, absolutely.
We're protecting America.
Yeah, way to go.
That's right.
That's correct.
Yep.
So
that, and we do a little traveling. We go around the country and see our grandchildren and so forth. We got to make our annual pilgrimage up to New York State because our 2 sons live up there and 5 of our grandchildren. Although some of them are in college now, our grandchildren are getting up there too, which is a little scary when you stop and think about it. If you got grandchildren in college, then you're only 5 or 10 years from being a great grandfather.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think it's a good thing that you keep, that you're still doing stuff. I think that's going to help you be here to be a great grandfather.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully it doesn't happen too fast. I know you don't want that to happen too fast. Yeah. So, okay. So now, and the thing I'm going to ask Ron, just to throw him off while he's putting that Rubik's Cube together.
That's fine.
Oh, why am I mixing you guys up? Okay, I'm going to ask Bob. I It's yeah. Why listen? There's a lot of things I like about trains, man. There's a lot of things I like about trains. Okay. The most annoying thing about trains is those things that stop me, you know, when I'm going someplace and closes the whole road down so the trains could go through. I hate those things.
So the alternative is getting hit by a train.
Well, of course, yes, yes, it is good for safety reasons. But you know, when you're sitting there, that ding, 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 ding coming down and blocking you is very. So, with that being said, how did you get into collecting these things?
I just always liked trains. And my mom would take me out back when we had only one car. We had to take Dad to work. There was a railroad yard not far from where he was at, and so we just go back there and watch the trains after we drop Dad off at work. And I've been fascinated with them all ever since, as long as I can remember. So just collecting some of the equipment has come later, but it's just trains have always just been a kind of a fascination hobby of mine.
He's got a picture of him in the engineer's position of this massive. Oh yes,
I have driven a massive steam locomotive. That was really cool.
Unbelievable.
And any railroad people would know the Norfolk and Western 611. It was a big passenger locomotive designed back in the 50s that Norfolk and Western used to use, and they kind of restored it for excursion purposes. And they had a deal up there in North Carolina last year where you could go up and actually drive this thing. So I have driven a steam locomotive. That was one of my bucket list items that I had to go do.
Sweet, very cool. Yeah, Armament and Axis says his oldest grandchild is almost 10. So in under 10 years, he could be a great grandfather. So that's awesome.
It's possible. It's possible.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. And then so the other thing I wanted to ask here, and Lola has actually written out a little thing that goes Ron on the left, Bob on the right.
Bob in orange, Ron in blue.
There you go.
Now, notice we did bring our Gator colors tonight.
There you go.
Awesome. Go Gators. Okay, so what do you guys think of the new proposed taxes on gun sales and NFA items, all that kind of stuff? Have you guys heard about that? Seen that?
No, but I'm not surprised. It's just another insidious way. First off, using the word assault weapon. All right. They're trying to control the language. If you listen to Mark Levin, who's on the radio right now. All right.
I hope we're not making you miss Mark.
No.
Now
we get his podcast. We go back and listen to it later.
He always talks about how the left tries to control the language, and you're right. You can't let them get away with assault weapon. There's no such thing as an assault weapon, or everything is an assault weapon. You know, a butter knife could be an assault weapon. All right. So these taxes are the same thing. You get a little tax here and a little tax there, and so forth. And once they get their foot in the door, they try, and then they want a tax on ammunition, and they want a tax on this and so forth. No, that's not what the Second Amendment says. Shall not be infringed.
Absolutely.
Not a suggestion either.
Yeah. You know what? I think we all agree with you out there. And, you know, obviously something has to be done with this. The thing that I keep going back to is that I think, you know, at some point here in America, we have to get sick and tired of all the crap that's going on, and we have to make some changes. Otherwise, we're going to wind up like the rest of the messed up places in the world. And the problem with that is no one else in the world is going to let us go across their borders into their countries.
That's right.
We don't even want to go. Whoa, look at that. Look at that. Wow, that's pretty well done, man. And I think you did that in less than 10. That's like, I'm going to say that was about 7 minutes.
That's about normal.
Yeah, about 6-7 minutes. Very well done. That's amazing.
You can multitask too.
Yeah, and that's all the interruptions. You're asking me questions in the process.
I was trying to throw you off, man. I was trying to throw you off. You know, I mean, we don't play fair around here.
Well, you know what they say: if you find yourself in a fair gunfight, you're not doing it right.
Exactly. I always want to cheat in a gunfight or anything.
There you go.
Anything for that matter. I'm one of those guys we were talking about later, especially, and I'm just trying to bring this back around, guys. You know, with those zombie raccoons out there.
Oh yes.
My
Glock is ready for them.
Yeah, we were talking yesterday. I think it was yesterday. We were talking about things to do with the border. You know, one of the things in the news right now is the border. There's a whole bunch of people that are just headed through Mexico to the border. Have you guys heard about this?
We have.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So we we were talking about this, and we're talking about different ways to deal with this. And I think that this is a way, Lola. If we dig trenches and then we take all the zombie raccoons and put them in the trenches, no one's going to come across the border.
I think you're onto something there, bro. You got it.
Yeah, that's what we need.
So don't shoot the zombie raccoons.
Yeah.
Send them to the border.
Catch them and send them to the border.
Yeah, just send them I think if you just put signs on the border with
that
zombie raccoon crossing,
release them into the moat there.
Yeah,
it's so crazy. This might work.
Yeah, I think if that's the case, we want to make those. We need to like figure out how they become zombie raccoons and zombify all the raccoons. Yeah, just
you know, on a more serious note, my parents came from Italy. All right, when they were children, they came here with their parents, you know, my grandparents and so forth. It's a very simple issue to me. They did their paperwork in Italy. They came here on the boat. They got processed through Ellis Island. They became American citizens. All right, they assimilated. In fact, I'll give you this little story. When my parents retired, my dad had this dream of going back to Italy and living. He just couldn't wait to do that. So they finally did that. After about 3 months, my dad was ready to come home. My mother said, "No, we're staying here a year. You're getting it out of your system." After living here for 50 years, he couldn't wait to get back to the U.S., which was his home now. All right. Yeah. So that's what we expect of immigrants. Yeah, you want to come here and live and assimilate? That's great. You know, well, we welcome you with open arms.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm an immigrant. My family immigrated here to America. So is Lola. And what always drives me crazy is that people leave countries, you know, where I was born in Guyana. That's 75% Amazons in South America. Beautiful people, beautiful place. It's the country in the world that has the most waterfalls. I can go on and on, but there's no way in hell I want to live there. And people leave all these places around the world that they live, and they come to America, and they leave these places for a reason. Yep. They leave them for a reason. There's people that don't want to live in England, and they come here because, and you know, well, England's not, you know, there's a very slim window of when England is awesome. Yeah. But people leave there because of taxes and all these kinds of things that we talk about. You know, there was this thing in the news about a guy in England, or a family, a husband and wife, they were sleeping. Someone broke into their house. The guy goes to the kitchen or whatever. He gets into a fight. Two guys broke into the house. One of them had a screwdriver. And so they get into a fight, and the guy grabs a kitchen knife and stabs the guy. Both of them run out of the house. The guy that was not stabbed was trying to get the stabbed guy into a van or something like that to drive away. Couldn't move him, left him there. And the neighbors came out and everything. The guy that was stabbed wound up dying. Now the police have gone and arrested the homeowner for that in England.
I think I heard of that story. That is crazy.
That's insane.
Yeah, you know, and so this is the thing. You can't even defend yourself in your own home in England. Why would you want to live there? And people don't want to live there.
Yeah,
you know,
I like the castle doctrine here in Florida.
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. So, you know, it's really crazy when people do that, and I think that we leave the countries we come from because they're so terrible. Don't come to America and try to make America into that. I'm not saying America's perfect. We are making it better, and it's 1,000 times better than anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, my parents never completed high school. I mean, they came here when mom was 12, dad was 14. They never completed high school. They had to work and so forth to support their parents, but they made a life for themselves. My parents ran a dry cleaning and laundry store, and they had a good living. They had 5 children, and we did well. I mean, they had a great dress code. Although I noticed in the movies, in the old home movies, the dress code got relaxed as more children came along.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it goes.
But that's what they did. I mean, they came to this country to have a better life, and they did.
Yeah. And Lola's going to kill me about this because Stefano Dog says raccoons here get huge. I'm not sure where he is. I think raccoons are everywhere around the country, right? Is there a place in America where there's no raccoons?
I don't know. I don't think you'll find too many in Nome, Alaska, but
maybe it might be some snow raccoons.
Barrows Point might be a little bit tough too, because that's up on the Arctic Ocean.
But the thing with raccoons, I think I just have an obsession with raccoons because when Lola and we bought our first house, I grew up in New York. She grew up in Maryland, and we met in New York, and we moved to New Jersey when we started having before we had kids. And then when we bought our first house, I always remember this: when you have your first house, you don't have like blinds everywhere. You know, you don't have furniture. And I remember Lola she went to work, and I was like painting the basement part of the house, and there were these like sliding doors that went out to the back patio and all that kind of stuff. So I was painting, and I took a break, and I sat down there at the patio doors, and it was kind of like night, and I'm sitting there, and a raccoon just comes right up to the thing and scared the bejeebus out of me.
Wow.
And I just remember screaming like a little baby girl. I remember that, and I remember telling her, like, that's what the hell's going on, because I mean, we weren't living in New Jersey that long, and I have never in my life seen raccoons up until that moment, and to me, it looked like a werewolf or something. I'm just saying. So
but when you're not expecting it, I guess it would.
Yeah, that's my traumatic moment with the raccoons.
With the raccoons, yeah. Hence the story.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to share that with you guys. Okay, so let's go back here. I don't know if there's some other things. Which someone said, I carry my revolver in single action. Wants to know which is meaner, a badger or a raccoon. So
I think I've never had a personal encounter with either one, but I think a badger would be.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Yeah, I'm going to say badger.
Yeah.
I'd shoot them both if they came after me.
Yeah. Richard Hughes says trash panda. I get, are those both trash pandas or just raccoons are trash pandas, basically, right?
Raccoons they have opposable thumbs.
Yeah, they're scavengers. They can
and they are scavenger, and they can really get into things. Yeah, because they have like little hands like ours.
Right.
So I don't know about a badger, but yeah. And they're nocturnal, like we discussed before. And so, yeah, they make a big mess. You leave stuff outside, and the raccoons will get it. Although, have we seen raccoons around Ocala?
Occasionally out in the Ocala National Forest, but I really haven't seen any out where we live.
Yeah. We definitely see them here. Stefano Dog says raccoons are in the Wolverine/Weasel. How are Wolverines and weasels related to each other?
Oh, mercy.
So he says they're in the Wolverine/Weasel family. Do not mess with them. They will eat your cat too.
Ooh.
Is that true?
They can be vicious.
Fortunately, I don't have a cat. But.
Yeah.
So let's get back to the Fairtax here before we wrap up.
Real quick, we're running short on time. I know.
Yeah, absolutely. Richard Hughes wants to know: does the Fairtax encourage single-parent homes?
Encourage single-parent homes?
I don't know. I'm not sure. You might have to elaborate on that.
Like, do you think I don't think that the Fairtax affects that.
Well, maybe he's saying because of the poverty, because of what you were saying with the poverty level, that people might just, I think welfare has already encouraged single-parent homes, in my personal opinion.
I'm not sure how the Fairtax would bear on that one way or the other. It would make every household, a little bit easier to get along. But
a single-parent home as opposed to a dual-parent home single-parent home would get a smaller prebate because your household size is smaller.
Yeah.
So I would think if you want to look at it that way, the Fairtax would encourage, the two-parent households, because a two-parent household gets a bigger prebate than a single-parent household.
Right, absolutely. And I think that welfare has done a lot of damage to the American family structure.
Oh, no doubt about that.
Yeah. So I don't see how we can make it any worse than it is, except to remove the motivations for people to be in those situations. So, okay, you know what? I'm going to give you guys an opportunity here in the last couple of minutes to tell folks who you are, how to get in touch with you, etc. on social media. And I know you have a podcast and other things. So how about you talk to the folks one more time about that?
Okay, real quickly, we do have a email address, the Fairtax Guys, all one word, the Fairtax Guys @gmail.com. We check that fairly regularly. And we're on Facebook. We've got a Facebook page, Facebook Guys, Fairtax Guys Facebook page. We do a Facebook Live, usually about once a month. We're a little bit behind on that. We're going to try to do one here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think we're going to do it right around tax time.
Yeah, just I think the Monday before tax day is when we're going to be on live on Facebook on our Facebook page.
Oh, cool. So
that's the best way. The Fairtax Guys at gmail.com and our Facebook page is the best way to get a hold of directly
Yep.
to get to us.
And we get a lot of good comments. Like I said, we discovered this young man from Colorado who's a CPA. He's been a huge asset to us. I mean, if we have a question, I'm a retired science teacher, and Bob is a programmer and radio DJ. So we're not natural tax and economists, okay? So when we get stuck, we have some people we can talk to. But we've had a lot of people, for instance, one of the little projects we were doing, somebody said, we need to come up with a Fairtax mascot.
okay, Raccoons.
Yes, I think we get a Fairtax Raccoon.
Yeah,
That has
zombie
been
raccoon.
suggested. Yep.
That'll work.
The tax bandit.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Good one. Good one. Good one.
So we have some great suggestions coming in from people, and sometimes some good information. Take a look at this video and so forth. So we really appreciate people emailing us. We get some great information like that.
And we appreciate you having us here tonight. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
This is very good for us. Yep.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks for coming and staying here the whole time, and for doing what you're doing and trying to get out there and change America. You know, we all appreciate that. I'm sure my audience does. So on behalf of them, I want to thank you guys for coming on, and of course, we'll have you come back here again. Please, guys, go follow these gentlemen on social media and listen to their podcasts. I want to remind everyone that in the description of this video, there's lots of links to all the stuff that we talk about. hankstrange.tv. You guys need to go there and register your email so we can communicate with you, as well as I work here for Big Daddy Guns, and Big Daddy Unlimited is one of our new projects. Just imagine it, if you wanted to save money on if you're like me and you buy a lot of guns, ammo, accessories, and things like that, Big Daddy Unlimited is a way for you to buy those things at wholesale prices. There is a membership for it. It's $10 a month, so for about $120 a year, you can save thousands of dollars on your purchases. So check out Big Daddy Unlimited. We have a link in the description here. It's basically, think about it as like Amazon Prime for guns.
Yeah, there you go.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So I encourage you guys to check that out. I want to thank everyone that supports us on Patreon. We're Patreon/HankStrange. I want to thank everyone in the chat, all the folks that are hanging out here with us tonight. We're not going to be here tomorrow or for the rest of next week. We are going to put up different videos and things like that. And I will be doing some videos out in Vegas. I'm going to the broadcasting show. So please, guys, you can help me out by looking at those videos, sharing them, and all that kind of stuff. And we'll be back the following week. So did you guys have any last words before we go?
Yeah, I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Romolero.
Reminding you the Fairtax is America's big solution, and once you understand it,
You'll demand it.
thanks.
And that's
right.
the way we close every podcast. So our podcasts are on Spreaker.com, iTunes, iHeart, and YouTube.
Okay, awesome, guys. Thank you very much. Okay, fellow people, we're out of here. Peace. You guys stay right there. We're out.
Okay.
See ya.